The internet, a series of forms. Hello, my name is Nichols Griggs. I'm a JavaScript developer, and we'll be talking about web user experience, or as it's now come to be known as UX. Here's a quote from Steve Krug, author of Don't Make Me Think. He says, "I spend a lot of time telling people things they already know. So for the next few minutes, let's agree not to learn anything new." Forms are everywhere. They are not exciting, but they are everywhere. They're in logins, they're in signups, checkouts. A tweet is a form. When we're coding in space on our ways to an acne-ridden Saturn, I think, we will probably still be writing forms. So here are some bullet points for ensuring your forms are like 2 sticks of butter. I call them the 3 E's. The first E is convention. Why did I frame these bullet points in a familiar fashion? Like the ABCs or the 1, 2, 3s, it's familiar. And convention is something that you should not lightly break. Programmers are creative, and so we naturally resist it, but think really, really hard before you do it. The form can be boring. That's just fine, as long as the message is engaging. Have your fun there. And what we do, and what do we get for following convention? Well, let's take a look at the website for Ferrero Rocher. It's in its original Italian, and without understanding Italian, we can easily see how to navigate the website. Convention is a language unto itself that can allow us to circumvent other communication barriers. Here's a quote from Geoffrey Chaucer. Notice how especially hard, complex words are to read. That's because this was written in the late 1300s before English was standardized. And so through convention, convention can easily be taken for granted when you're the one building the page. But don't try to make new slang happen. It's not going to happen. You're probably not Apple, and if you are Apple, please lower the price of your dongles. Let's talk about the next E, which actually is an E, eligibility. Don't check your programmer hat at the door when you sit down to make forms. They're very similar to just making a function. Here's another quote from me. Good programming reduces our workload. Great programming reduces the workload of our programs. Somebody before me probably said that much more eloquently, but I'll take the credit for that wording. So let's take a look at Oscar Insurance's homepage. Their form for sign up immediately just asks for your zip code. And if you put in a zip code that is not covered inside their base, then they will immediately redirect you to one of their partners that might be able to help you. And yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a real zip code. It's the zip code for Schenectady, New York. Let's take a look at Grubhub, which also starts out with another form. It asks for only the information necessary to get started, and it will take either a street address, a city, a state, and is labeled as such. And then has a really great little button that says Find Food. The form then will bring you over to a list of people who might be able to send you food, but when you try to check out, it will bring up a new form and asking you for your street address, so it knows for a fact before you start building a cart that you can in fact order from that person. So robust forms do not need to build barriers between your users and your products. The third E is expectations. Tell our users, preferably multiple times, exactly what we want from them. Don't create undue anxiety. Good forms can handle any kind of technically correct data. And so why don't we make these kinds of robust forms more often? We're lazy. Another quote from the React docs, controlled components are annoying, and they can become particularly annoying when you are converting a pre-existing code base to React. This quote makes explicit the necessity to consider UX while you're coding, not while you're refactoring. And so what can we do with on-event auto-formatting if we're making a React website, or really most new front-end frameworks? We will be using controlled components, which gives us a chance to alter our users' inputs before we put them on the state. And the bullet points for this are really easy, the advantages. We can remove user guesswork by converting a series of numbers into a formatted telephone number with the area code wrapped and a dash between the next 3 numbers and the last 4 numbers. Also, we can reduce erroneous backend calls by pre-validating our data before we call the server. And also, all of this, again, is easily to add to our change handlers. And the steps might seem really, really familiar. Again, we're not learning anything new. First, we would sanitize the data of necessary keystrokes, perhaps with a regex that would do that for us. Then we would validate that data in something we can work with. And then that formats the data so the user knows what they're entering is going to work. If it starts to format for them on the front end, they know that what they're putting in is what we're looking for. And you won't get a strange error in the end saying that, oh, you didn't format your your phone number the way we wanted it to, the way we wanted you to. So let's take a form here created right here at Full Stack Academy. Every field is clearly labeled and given placeholder text. Managing your labels and alt text, by the way, greatly helps JAWS text-to-speech programs for people who are blind or hard of seeing, low vision. And so in doing that also, though, that feeds back into other users that we have that will be able to see perfectly by giving them free and easy labels, not ones that disappear, not ones that are only just on the placeholder text. We've got some more time, and so let's talk about natural language forms. Natural language forms are literally fill in the blanks like the old Mad Lib games. They're somewhat controversial on the internet. Some people say that they increase interactivity. Some people say that they really don't change interactivity at all, and so why throw a curveball at your users? I'm going to show you again Oscar Insurance here, which continues as it goes on, asking you one question at a time, asking you to fill in the blanks, and it starts building out a possible rate for you as you go. Notice also the lack of distractions. The entire view is taken over by the form, and it's just you and Oscar having a conversation. By the way, if you'd like to fill in that blank right there, I'm actually on the job market, and that would be just fine with me. Here's another, but ad-libs forms don't have to be very obviously ad-lib. Here's Best Buy, which has broken up a form for setting up a reservation for their Geek Squad into 5 steps, each with small, easily digested questions. And this doesn't feel like a form anymore when you're filling it out, even though it absolutely is. It's just like a normal human conversation. Last, if you want to see some further reading, 3 great books are Forms That Work by Carolyn Jarrett and Jerry Gaffney. There's also Don't Make Me Think, of course, by Steve Krug, and Web Form Design by Luke Wroblewski. Again, my name is Brian Nichols Griggs. Thanks very much.